Thank you. Thanks for that. I restarted my spiritual journey, my awakening, only, let's say, about a week, not a week ago, a year ago, when I started to feel so much stress and so much despair, anxiety at work. And also all the things that are happening in the world right now. It kind of shook my beliefs into its foundations. And then one of the first thing I started to learn is yoga, classic yoga, and at the same time some meditation techniques also that some friends have shared with me. So anyhow, as I learned all of that, I realized that actually my spiritual journey did not just begin a year ago. It began when I was little, because I'm going to share with you one of the first things that I really loved doing as a child, as a young teenager. I was about 12 years old, I think, 11, 12, when I started free diving. At the time, that wasn't what it's called. It simply was, you see how beautiful the corals are. I grew up in a country with a lot of beautiful ocean and warm seas, tropical seas in the Philippines. And so we often go to beaches and excursions, and I just can't help it. It's so beautiful under the water. So I said, I want to go in. I want to experience it up close. So I really enjoyed free diving, and I didn't realize then, but I only realized now that it was very similar actually to us, even certain types of Kriya. You before you go in, you breathe, you breathe even more, very deeply, and then you hold it, and then you go in, and you don't just dive in. You dive in the most gentle and smooth way, so you don't overexert yourself. You relax your body. You let it sink. You don't fight the water. You try to glide into it. And that way you won't run out of oxygen so quickly. Right? So that's an example on the upper right of a skin diver or a free diver going down the water. And as you reach 4 meters under the water, your body begins to change naturally. Our bodies are like, remembers the water. Our blood in the extremities start to come into the core in your body, your limbs. The blood comes into the core of your body to keep your body warm, to conserve oxygen. The diaphragm collapses, and somehow you don't feel as much, and your body starts to conserve oxygen. So you're like a dolphin in a way. It's called an automatic mammalian reflex. You can look it up, AMR. It's a natural tendency that many people don't realize it's there, but it is. So this beautiful body we are all given is given all these gifts, including even the gift to swim like a dolphin. So and of course, as I reach bottom, usually I'll dive down to about 10-15 meters. It doesn't take very deep to start being among the coral gardens like you see on the left side. And it's so beautiful. I tell you, when the rays of the sun are coming down and it's dancing under the ocean bottom, you really feel like you're in a different world, and you feel like you're by yourself. And at the same time you are with the ocean. The only sound you can hear is your heartbeat, boom 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 boom, and you can hear the sounds of life around the ocean. And I can almost imagine it's like being in my mother's womb. And you really feel like you're one with this underwater life, ecosystem. And of course, at some point, you will run out of breath. so then you start to come up, and you come up and you look up the sky, and the sun is there, and you're like reaching out to this source of life, the sun. And then you're running out of air, right? And finally, you break through the surface, and you breathe out, you breathe in the life-giving prana. So it's so beautiful. When I think back about it, it feels like, oh, this is so much like our life. You only have this short amount of time to enjoy that moment underwater, but it is so beautiful. But it's also it can be full of fear. It could be full of anxiety if you're afraid of, poisonous fishes or sharks. But it can also be very blissful if you have none of those fears. So I felt it was really meaningful, and I felt this experience I had in my youth, which I continue to carry with me today, started to open me up, started to make me more sensitive to nature, to appreciate her more, and then how connected we are, you know, at that age. So moving on. So that's when my first exposure. You know, I'm an engineer by education, and so I like science, systems. You know, thinking about systems, how things are interconnected, and but at the same time, I love nature. I love the planet. I want to preserve and protect it. So the first area I was very passionate about was sustainability, about preserving nature. And then one of the earliest theories I heard about that has to do with nature being one big organic being is the Gaia theory, Gaia hypothesis. It's actually not a new theory. It's a 1970s theory that was um, proposed by Dr. James Lovelock. So he's a British scientist. He's very well known for having been invited by NASA to work on their Mars Viking missions to confirm if there's life in Mars. Because of his holistic thinking about how life ought to be, you know, how life are interconnected, and that there are telltale signs that you can see if life exists or not, if there are changes in the atmosphere, differences in soil composition, in water. So he's able to apply that to a planetary system. And sure enough, yeah, the Viking missions came back with no proof of life, at least physical life that we know of. Some of you may know that there is other forms of life beyond the physical, that there's also spiritual life and energetic life. So that's Gaia theory. And this theory continues to be, after over 30 years now, becoming more and more accepted by many of the scientific disciplines, which is very encouraging. I feel like science is catching up with spirituality. Yeah, do you think that? Do you feel that? Quantum physics, if any of you are familiar with quantum physics, the unified quantum field theory. Imagine that physics is now saying there's a single unified consciousness that is governing the cosmos, the multiverses. Right? So after they spent billions of dollars to find that out, we know that in spirituality already this is true. Well, but yeah, I'm happy to see science catching up, and this is another way science is catching up to the spiritual wisdoms. Gaia theory, right? Gaia theory proposes that all organisms in the planet, not just living organisms, also the inorganic elements and forces of nature are all interconnected. They're all working together like one unified big organism, Gaia. And that this is and by definition of life is self-preserving, it's self-regulating, it's interactive. Right now, actually, scientists are still debating what is life, but this is the definition of life as per Dr. Lovelock. It's self-preserving, self-regulating, interactive. Yeah. So therefore, based on that definition, Mother Earth is alive. And we are part of Mother Earth. We are part of that life. We are the microcosm within the macrocosm of Mother Gaia. And we know there is this one bigger, even bigger macrocosm that is the one source, right? And sometimes I talk to my friends on spirituality, and we talk about, yes, all of us must aspire to reconnect with the one source, but we must also first remember that we must first connect to the Mother Gaia, this macrocosm that our body right now belongs to. Are we doing that today? Right? Sometimes maybe not so much. So we must remember that we must still connect. There's a few slides here that is more scientific. Those who are more inclined may find this of interest, but I just thought I'd put a few things. These are evidence that Gaia theory is true, is correct. It's proven by science that how the oxygen of the planet over hundreds of thousands of years have been self-regulating. The balance between carbon dioxide, methane, you know, the green graph you see in the middle, that's methane. The top blue bar The blue graph, that's CO2, carbon dioxide. The bottom one is the oxygen levels. And as one component of air changes, so does the other components. Life really is interrelated. Even on the next slide here, talks about the temperature of the planet. A lot of you have and probably everybody has seen the hockey stick CO2 trends, right, of the planet. Everyone knows that, yeah, well, at this point, there's a consensus that says as the CO2 goes up, the temperature goes up. But one thing you also would notice here is that every year, in fact, CO2 comes up and down. It's as if literally the planet is breathing, right? Because the seasons are changing. Every year, there's the 4 seasons, and then through the seasons, the levels of life also cycles through. Some plants go into winter hibernation, closes down their stomata, their leaves, decreases oxygen consumption, increases CO2 expulsion. So the planet is breathing. The planet is breathing. Right? It's the algae, plants, animal life, fungi, all of that. Even minerals are exchanging the composition of air, reacting with the air as part of the planetary life cycle. And more. So this is the last slide that talks about the science, but this is the Dr. James Lovelock. He's 91 now this year. And there's a lot of the evidence that over the years just continued to grow in terms of in support of the Gaia theory. So if you're like me, who's scientifically inclined, who likes to still continue to follow the developments in science, I follow science because it's a very different field from spirituality. But remember, words are the key to a person's soul. It's a key to a person's heart. And many of the friends I work with still resonate very much with scientific words and terminologies and facts. So I use this as a key to their heart to start talking about spirituality, you know. I start talking about Gaia theory. I can talk about quantum theory, and then we will go into spirituality to say that we are after all one, right? The science proves it already. But don't believe me, experience it by meditating. That's what I would tell people. So moving on, so beyond science, there's all these other traditions, cultural traditions, like from China, there's Daoism, Tao, right? The upper right word here, this is Tao, meaning the way. What is the way? The way is simply how Mother Nature balances things. How Mother Nature balances the yin and the yang. The dark and the light are meant to be together. They're meant to balance each other out. They're not fighting with each other. They're meant to be together. Right? You saw how Gaia also balances the different forces of nature and the different compositions of the earth. I just put, there's so many things written on the Tao Te Ching or the I Ching about nature, but these are just a few examples there. It's such a beautiful work. In fact, many people talk about shamanism. In China, this is shamanism of China, Tao. And it's just so well documented. Among all the shamanistic traditions in the world, probably Tao is one of the better documented. You know, it's in writing, in sculptures, it's in art. And it continues to survive today. And of course, we will talk about shamanism later as well, which of course roots itself very much in nature. Right? So this is so beautiful. Let me just read one of my favorites. The Tao abides in non-action, yet nothing is left undone. If kings and lords observe this, the 10,000 things would develop naturally. If they still desire to act, they would return to the simplicity of formless substance. Without form, there is no desire. Without desire, there is tranquility. In this way, all things would be at peace. Yeah. So it's letting things work by itself naturally. Don't force it. Don't try to do surgery. Use Ayurveda. Let the body heal itself, right? Use traditional Chinese medicine. Let the body heal itself. Don't use chemicals and pesticides and fertilizer. Use nature, the ecosystem services. Use regenerative agriculture. Use use organic farming methods, right? So use compost. So those are examples of how Tao applies to our life today very much. It's very practical, can be applied. Moving on. So I mentioned shamanism and nature. It's very much integrated with each other. Shamanism is the oldest of all belief systems. I know Hinduism is a very old system. Shamanism is very even older. Right? It's 100,000 years old, more than that even. People say it's 100, 200,000. It's in every culture. It's in every culture. I just showed you for China that it's in the form of Daoism. In fact, before Daoism, it was shamanism essentially. You know, the Pakwa, the yin and the yang symbol, it was already there before the books of Taoism was even written. The picture here in the middle is a druidic shamanism, form of shamanism. Of course, on the upper right is the shamanism in the Americas, right? There's of course the Northern Americas and also the Mesoamerican in the South, which have their own distinct flavors, but a lot of commonalities. Shamanism predates and underlies all spiritual paths and systems. And nature in her perfection is the inspiration of shamanism. We are nature. People are nature. This is the core belief, right? So simple, because people lived in it very much. But of course, as our civilization evolved into us to this so-called modern life we have today, we have become more and more separated from nature. Right now, I'm in a hotel room. I'm so thankful. Nature is just outside my window. But if I'm back in Shanghai, all I have is a few trees outside. Right? We are forced by modern life to live apart from nature. That's why I have such a strong calling to go back and start a farm in the Philippines and leave my job here in Shanghai and fly back next by the end of the year. You know, become a shaman, live a shamanistic life. And then so shamanism. And I was so happy. So I was also searching in Hinduism. There's such a rich heritage as well in nature. Lord Dattatreya, I was so happy to see. There was the 24 nature teachers that Lord Dattatreya taught. And I listed them here. I won't go through every single one, but they're so wonderful. They're so insightful. Right? The elements, earth, wind, sky, water, fire, each of them have certain teachings or learnings that we can get from. Right? For example, the earth, Mother Earth, she is so steadfast, so productive, so overflowing with life. And yet she always gets abused. But still she heals, right? She keeps giving and giving and giving. She truly is our mother, and our grandmother, and our great grandmother. So the learning there is forbearance. Right? It's just overflowing, unending love, remaining undisturbed even if oppressed. Just continue to be steady, always healing, and yet continuing to nurture others, and the wind, and the sky, and the water. So I will share this slide later on. So I'm not gonna read through every single one of them, but this is just to share with you a taste of all the beautiful teachings that we can get from nature. And there's the moon, the sun, pigeons, pythons, bumblebees, and and of course, you know, there's just so many beautiful creatures out there, and this is but a few or a sampling of those. And there's also the roles of the child, the maiden, and well, there's even a courtesan in here. So, and other creatures, snakes, and even a profession like an arrowsmith. I was quite interested to see. I couldn't find an Indian arrowsmith picture, so I ended up putting a Japanese arrowsmith here. But you know, it's interesting. It's a trade craft, right? So some of you may be into that. In fact, many of you probably are, right? You enjoy doing something and you're so passionate, you're so focused on it, you didn't even notice the time has passed or somebody important has showed up. And that in itself is a way to self-realization. what is it? Bhakti yoga, the yoga of devotion is as an example. Yoga is so beautiful. And yeah, spiders that creates beautiful webs and then would readily just destroy it and abandon it and start somewhere else again, without any qualms, without any complaints. Um, and it's an example of non-attachment, right? It's not getting entangled in your own web. Some people, we build up big businesses, a big career, and then we get entangled with it. We don't want to let go. But look at the spider. You can easily just let go of a very beautifully made web. Just abandon it and move on. And listen to your Atma. Listen to your inner self. I'm starting to listen to my inner self. The inner self is always right, isn't it? The inner self tells us the truth, the deepest truth that sometimes we don't want to hear. Our ego doesn't want to hear. So nature has so many deep learnings, deep teachings. So these are but some of them. This is but some of them. Some practical ideas. Of course, we talk about all of these. How do we use it, right? Day to day. How do we apply it? So very simply, spend time in your own nature place, in your own Gaia or Dao place or Zen place. This doesn't mean you have to have a big garden. It doesn't mean you have to live next to a forest. It could be a simple corner in your house where you have a few plants. It could be a simple a window where you have a view of the sky. Well, maybe sometimes it's polluted, but still you can see the moon. You can see the sun. There are some trees. So find that space, or even just a neighborhood garden, or it doesn't have to be a big place. It doesn't have to be like right in the wilderness, yeah, because I know in modern life that's not always possible on a day-to-day basis. So that on that picture on the upper right was meant to be an example of that. You can just put a bunch of potted plants around you, some herbs, and that's already a Gaia place where you can sit down and be the place where you meditate. It can be your consecrated space, right, where you also put your puja there. um, it can be so healing, right? This is just being connected, having a place to connect. The next one is nature bathing. So sometimes we do have a chance to go out and travel. On the lower right side, that's me. On the lower right, sorry, that's not me. The lower right is just some guy I found on Google. Go for a hike, like what I'm doing today. In fact, this past 2 days, I was hiking around the mountains here in the Ox Head Mountain. This is the pilgrimage site for Daoism, where Master Ye learned Taoism when he was 11 years old, and where he finally ascended when he was 105 years old, a very, very old man in the Tang Dynasty, around 600 AD, right? At the time, the average age of people was only about 30 plus, and to live 105 is like being immortal in those days. But yeah, he was the advisor of 5 emperors, and the Tang Dynasty owes him for the golden age of China because of all his teaching. A Taoist master who taught harmony, non-violence, letting people live in harmony with nature, with one another, and letting the flow rule our lives. So nature bathing, sorry, I kind of digressed. On the lower left, that's me in the blue shirt on the river. This is in Huangshan, the Yellow Mountain. We were also doing another pilgrimage trip there of sorts, a spiritual trip there of sorts last weekend. And I found this beautiful river next to our inn. And I went there in the early morning and just did my Qigong. I do Qigong as part of my sadhana, as my energy uplifting work before meditation. I find I get to meditate more deeply by doing energy work first. Or pranayama, right? Pranayama is also very effective energy raising work. But here, this is Qigong. And Qigong, I feel, is more effective to do where there's flowing water or next to trees, or when there's wind, movement. So the Qi flows through more powerfully through the body. Yeah. So Qigong is a part of the Tao teachings. In fact, it predates Tao as well. So practicing in nature. You all probably know the story of Lord Buddha, Master Buddha, right? Sometimes I think about how he achieved enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, a tree with deep roots that tapped into the underwater groundwater source, and being next to a river may have also brought energies to his meditative moment that time. But definitely that was an enlightenment that happened in nature as well, right? With the nature's blessings. So yeah, just some practical ideas. I'm sure you will have your own. Um, Free diving was the other one I shared in the beginning. It could be a simple walk. It could be simply sitting under a tree, having a nice conversation. Um, yeah, there's so many ways. So for the software engineers out there like me, or the scientists, um, so out of the Gaia theory, there's a movement. There's some people who took the theory and say we want to apply this as a philosophy of how we live our life. So taking Gaia theory, understanding that we are part of nature, that when we go to nature, we want to experience her, have a deep experience. This is the orange arrow on top. When we go to nature, experience her deeply, just connect with her. Listen to the sounds of the leaves. Listen to the crumbling of the rocks under your feet as you walk. Look at the water, how the water flows. Just soak it all in. Feel the observe the interconnectedness in nature. This is Tao, in fact. This is in Tao, how the meditation is done. And then you start to do some deep questioning also, deep reflecting. Why is the world like this? Is my life working in harmony the way nature is working in harmony? Is my work in harmony with my beliefs? Is my life in my family, my relationships in my life with my spouse, my children, my friends, is that in harmony? Is it consistent with how, because nature, remember, in the teachings of Lord Dattatreya, nature teaches us a lot of lessons. And so by observing nature, it teaches us as well answers to questions in our own life, and how to be a better human being, right? So deep questioning. And lastly, deep commitment. Because when we receive the truth, whether it's from a meditative revelation that we receive, a message we receive from our divine guides, from our inner self, or from answers from inspirations in nature, or from intuition, when you receive these truths and you know it is truth, there's no choice. We must go out and share it. We must go out and apply it in our life. We must go out and make use of this, right? This is what the truth is for. So there's the deep commitment. I also started to feel so strongly. At one point, so I work in a large multinational company. Um, and they, ironically, after all the mergers and acquisitions that's happened, I ended up in one of the small companies which sells and manufactures agrochemicals. So very ironic, right? I said, okay, should I leave this company because it doesn't meet my values? And this just happened last year. Actually, it happened last year, and that was also the time when I was starting to question all my beliefs, question what am I doing with my life? And so I said, okay, maybe I should quit. It doesn't resonate with me, my values. But then as I meditated on this, and in fact, I fasted for, I think, about 3 days. I wanted to do 7, but by third day, I already have no energy. I was about to topple over, and I still have to eat. But the answer came back and said, no, I don't have to. I don't have to leave. I can be where I am and just share my light with other people, because big changes happen from within. If we walk away, then how will change happen, right? So I decided to stay and just be an advocate for sustainable agriculture, to move away from chemicals. Or if it has to be chemical, then it has to be used in moderation, just like how we balance between Ayurveda or Chinese medicine with Western medicine. Right? Sometimes if you have a severe case of infection and you need to use antibiotic, okay, but in moderation, right? You don't take it every day like they do in a poultry farm or in an industrial farm. No, you take it only the amount you need. Then you go back to restoring your health. Go back to using natural ways, right? Um, so there's a balance. There's a discipline. You don't abuse it because anyhow, where did Western medicine come from? All of the active ingredients, most of it they found it from nature as well, right? Um, so that yeah. And I was so happy to just the 3 months ago, finally the company announced a sustainability goal for 2030 that they're going to teach farmer to enrich the soil, bring back life into the soil, use more organic farming methods, use less chemicals, manage the water better, help to educate more farmers, help to restore more farmland around the planet. So I was so happy. The company's changing. so so we just have to shine our light where we are. Right? That's an example of, in my case, my ecosophy in practice. And this is one last slide about that. Right? Deep ecology. It's to pay respects to Dr. Lovelock and his teaching about deep ecology. It started in the 1970s, and they started sharing these beliefs and principles to political organizations, and this is how the environmental movement began. Um, and it's been evolving. In fact, I think this is not even the latest anymore in terms of their platform. All life have value. Richness and diversity have value. Humans have no right to reduce the diversity, the richness of nature just to satisfy our needs. The impact of humans in the world is getting worse. So a lot of this resonates with us, with those of us who are seeking spiritual truth. And I've always believed that seeking spiritual truth need not be in isolation. We need not become a hermit and go up and be by ourselves. We in a time like this when major changes are happening and so many people are looking for the truth, even though our knowledge is not perfect, like my knowledge is not perfect, and I took courage to present today. We just have to start sharing. We start to have to connect with people and find people who we can collaborate with and pursue this greater purpose of bringing awakening to the world, helping people to see a different way of living, and then a higher truth beyond the material truth. We've all been pre-programmed. We've all been conditioned to believe, and in today's education system. So, and then interestingly, the last point. So those who accept these truths have an obligation to participate in implementing the necessary changes peacefully and democratically. Right? So I love this belief system, and so I've always felt strongly that whenever there are green conferences or sustainability forums, I would be there. I will go and support them, even though it's not about spirituality. I will still go and then sometimes, of course, over dinner, it gives me a chance to just have a few social conversations with people anyway. And I try to incorporate this in my job. Uh, in the introduction, I'm introduced as a software engineer, but I more recently took up also in my responsibility the operation management of offices and laboratories for facilities. And when you have facilities in a workplace, it's an opportunity for me to change that work environment to make it have holistic wellness components in it, and then have a not just safe, but basically a place where people will feel kinder to work with one another, to feel more balanced, to feel grounded. We put more plants, we have sunlight. We try to encourage things like yoga during lunch breaks. Wellness, holistic wellness in the workplace. And then I'm trying to introduce that as a standard in the industry, but so far not yet gaining so much traction, but hopefully soon it will. So thank you so much. Thank you for listening.